Good afternoon. I'd like to introduce Narumata, who is the Kiarahi in the Auckland Business School, and she will do a mihi.
Tēnā koe, Dave. Tuia ki te rangi, tuia ki te whenua, tuia ki te moana, ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te ao, tihei mauri ora. He mihi ana ki a koutou katoa e ngā mana, e ngā reo, e ngā raurangatira mā, nau mai, haere mai, nau tō raurau, nā kū tō raurau, ka ora te manuhiri. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. We welcome each and every one of you to this session today. With your knowledge and with our knowledge, we will all be sustained. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Ka huri au ki te whare, kei a koe, Dave. Back to you, Dave.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And welcome everybody. My name is Dave Evers, and I'm the Manager of Business Development in Executive and Professional Development in the Auckland Business School. Thank you for joining this Transitioning to C-Suite Program information session today. We hope during this session that you'll get a great overview of the program and helping you make your decision whether you'd like to join this year. And just quickly on the agenda, we're going to do a program overview, and then we have some of our alumni that will be joining and talking to you about their experience, and we'll also have Q&A. Feel free as we go through the session at any time, you can enter Q&A into the Q&A function in your Zoom webinar link, and we will get to those questions either as we're going along or at the end of the session. And for now, I'm going to turn it over to Professor Rod McNaughton, who's the former Deputy Dean and Academic Director, and former Deputy Dean is currently the Academic Director for the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and he also teaches on the C-Suite program, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about the business school, executive and professional development, and his experience. Thanks, Rod.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you, Dave. On behalf of the University of Auckland Business School, I'd like to welcome you here this afternoon, and I'd really like to thank you for sharing your time to spend with us to learn a bit more, both about executive and professional development and about the C-Suite program in particular. I'd like to share with you just a little bit about what executive and professional development does, just as a background to where we get to for the Transitioning to C-Suite program. I'll just call it EPD from now on, so executive and professional development. We have a portfolio of offerings that range from short courses through to longer experiences like the C-Suite program that try to develop leadership capabilities over a longer period of time. But a lot of what the unit also does is quite customized. They're in-house programs and customized programs where we work directly with organizations to try to understand both their strategy, but their organizational learning needs, and to partner deeply with them to create experiences that develop the capabilities that they require as an organization. So while you've come to us today primarily because you're interested in the Transitioning to C-Suite program, I do hope that you will take the opportunity to have a look at our website, go through all of the different kinds of offerings that the unit has, and consider the many different ways that we could probably partner with your organization. The work that EPD does is distinguished from degree programs at the university in a number of ways, primarily because the programs that EPD runs are tipped in terms of their balance towards practice. So they are underpinned by thought leadership, by evidence and by research, but in a fairly short period of time, we are trying to create impactful opportunities for people to gain new skills and new ways of thinking. So consequently, programs offered by EPD are shorter, they are more flexible, they are more customized than degree programs. And they also often involve unique ways of delivery, for example, coaches that you wouldn't necessarily have in a degree program. However, EPD is, of course, part of the top business school in New Zealand. So we also have access to a large suite of professional degree programs, everything from postgraduate certificates through to master's degrees. Some of these are taught in person, some of them fully online. And of course, we have the largest group of world-class researchers, business researchers in the country. So EPD can draw on the other resources in the business school, both degree programs and from a research point of view, to help meet the needs of the organizations that it works with. The C-Suite program is our flagship. This program is looking to prepare people who are destined for the top level of organizations. For me, having worked in the program, the most important outcome of the program you see is the shift in thinking and of mindset of the participants who go through it. The alumni of the program think across the organization. They think at the organizational level. They transcend whatever the functional area is that they have worked in the organization, and they shift their views towards considering the independencies of decision-making across the organization, and they worry about the health of the organization and its people as a whole. So during the period that you're with us today, you're going to hear from alumni about their experiences, both in the program and how it has affected their work afterwards. And Dave is going to tell you a little bit more about the program structure and how it weaves together thought leadership with practical examples, helps you build your network, both with other participants, but also with instructors from the university, the guests that we bring in from outside, our advisory board, and coaches. I'm going to join the panel a little bit later and share some other thoughts with you from my experience teaching innovation governance within the program. But for now, I'd like to thank you again for spending this time with us, and I will turn you back over to Dave.
Thank you very much, Rod. Appreciate that. Yeah, so I'm just going to take you through a brief program overview before we get to the alumni. So as Rod mentioned, why do a C-suite program or a transition to C-suite program? So first, learn to think strategically and advance to the senior level. So as Rod mentioned, many people, we have many mid to senior level people that come through our programs. And when you're working in your functional area, whether it's in the finance or IT, you're working at a technical level. As you move up in the organization, you're presenting to the board, you're presenting to upper management, the CEO, and you're working across the organization. And you're thinking at a strategic level. And this is a challenge for many people as they advance in the organization. And that's what these programs, like a senior leadership program, is designed for, to give you those new skills. Expand your network. We'll talk a little bit about that as we go through the presentation, but certainly we have a tremendous network of people that will be in your cohort, 30 to 40 people, 40 to 50, 30 to 50 people will probably be in this overall cohort, 10 to 15 in your individual specialization cluster. And that's a tremendous network. We've also had close to 300 people that have gone through the program. So that's a great new network that you'll develop as you go through the program. Best practices and innovations. You're going to learn from people, diverse people from different organizations, different backgrounds. And that's really going to give you new ways of thinking. You're going to gain confidence and competence as you go through, and certainly increase your visibility and credibility inside your organization. So those are some of the reasons to do it. What you'll gain, the program has a balanced academic and practical content. We have our academics as Rod. We also have many guest speakers that come through that are drawn from our advisory group and from others, really senior level people that are going to come through and talk to you about their organizations and the topic that we're dealing with. And really you have some great discussion in the classroom in each of the blocks. You develop a lifelong relationship with the business school. You are an alum of the business school and just all of that you have access to, especially with a lot of people that are not New Zealand residents that have gone to or who did not grow up in New Zealand, didn't go to University of New Zealand, but coming here gives you access to the University of Auckland. Mentoring and coaching from our advisor group, and we'll talk about that a little more. And as I mentioned, expand your your network very quickly as you come into this program. So some of the elements of the program, again, it's really, there's peer coaching, there's individual reflection, peer working groups, the guest speakers, case studies. It's really a mix. And as our alumni will talk about, and Jonte Rhodes will talk about, who's an alum and been from a number of years ago, the program has continued to evolve and develop over the years. But it's different than, as Rod mentioned, it's different than doing an MBA or a degree program, where this is really a practically focused program with business people. You can see on the right side of this slide some of the guest speakers we've had over the last the last 2 years. So we had Greg Foran, who's the CEO of Air New Zealand, came in and spoke to our C-suite students 2 years ago. Vanessa Sorensen, who's the MD, she was the CIO at Microsoft. Now she's the managing director of Microsoft New Zealand, and she was on our advisory group. Paul Adams, who's the CEO of EverEdge Global, spoke to our C-suite students, went on to do a webinar. So you can really see it's just these really fantastic people that are coming through and sharing their experience with you and their background. And these become, your network. I mean, you have access to these people, you get to know them as mentors and just as guest speakers, and, can really learn a tremendous amount in a short period of time. And again, the advisory groups, if you go to our website and you scroll to the bottom, you can pop out and you can see the advisory groups for each of the streams, really senior people. They're very involved as co-designers of the program, mentors, sponsors, speakers, and then on various panels. So they're just a great access. Jonte, who's on our advisory group, he'll be speaking in a few minutes about that experience. And you can see the participating companies that we had. And this is just actually from this past year, the companies that we had going through, from private sector, Vector, Fonterra, Westpac, Fisher and Paykel, to Waste Management, Tatua Cooperative Dairy Company, so we have City Care. So we also have the public sector that are participating. So I think it's really a diverse group of people that are coming in, and that's what makes the program interesting. The discussion that you're going to have in the classroom. And really, as you know, this is how people advance their careers, how they do different deals, is through the network that you developed. And it's not always easy to develop your network, right, once you move into a mid to senior level. So this allows you an opportunity to do that. And just very quickly on the format and the schedule, the program is set up in 5 two-day modules that are spread from September through December. 3 of the modules are in person and 2 of the modules are online. And so we think it's important, we've had to change over the last couple of years because of COVID and doing things online, and we've learned a lot from that. And there's a lot of value to having things online. We have more flexibility. We can bring speakers in from overseas and in video and do interesting things. However, really the key to these programs, and one of the most important things, is the network and getting together in person and building those relationships. So that's why we've gone to the three in person and 2 online. And we do get a lot of people from outside of Auckland. So that makes it a little more flexible, where you only need to come into Auckland 3 times rather than 5 times. And on those class days, when you're in class, we provide catering, full catering on the class days that you're here. We also have receptions and dinners and things that are incorporated with the program that are included within the program fee. You can see, so the first and the 3, I'll say one other thing about the modules. The 3 modules that are in person, when you're all together, you'll have all the participants from each of the different specializations. So you'll have the CFOs, the CIOs, the general managers, people in the supply chain all together. And that's when you do the high level topics, whether it's leadership and strategy in module 1 or in module 2, module 3, I should say, leading organizational change and innovation. And in module 5, executive communication and influencing. And so that's when you're doing the bigger topics and have everybody together. And then during the online modules is when you're doing your specialization area. right? Whether it's in IT or finance, and that's we're going to focus more in that specialization area online with your cluster for that focus. Okay, and again, if you have any questions, I see somebody answered, feel free to put them through, and all this information is also on our website. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is introduce our panel, our alumni panel, and then we'll move into have them each talk to you about their experience, and then we'll move into a panel discussion and bring Rod back in. So very happy to have Jonty Rhodes, who's the VP Supply Chain, Facilities and Sustainability at Fisher and Paykel and Healthcare. And Jonty's really interesting because he did our program, the supply chain program a number of years ago, and has now moved to our advisory group, which he's been on for a number of years, and also as a sponsor, has sponsored many of his team that have gone through the program over the years. We have Azora Ali, who did the program 2 years ago. She's the CFO of Temora District Council. But when she did the program, she wasn't in that position, so has been promoted since the time of coming through the program. And we have Bruce Bothwick, who's the HR business partnering at Airways New Zealand and just finished the program this year. And I believe another of his team members from Airways New Zealand is going to be coming in this year. So with that, I'll hand it over. I'll stop sharing and I'll hand it over to Jonty to talk about his experience.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dave. Can everybody hear me all right, Dave? You can hear me?
Yep, hearing you very well. Thanks. Seeing you good too.
Hey, welcome. Hi, everyone online. It's a pleasure to be here today. As Dave said, I've had the benefit of actually being both a participant, a mentor, an advisory group member, and a sponsor. So I'm very familiar with the program. I was actually in the inaugural program when it was set up quite a number of years ago. And I guess, you know, for me, I've had the benefit of seeing my own team members go through it. I think it's a fantastic program if you're trying to make that jump from into either a leadership management position or a management C-suite type movement. It's a great all-rounder program. Probably the thing that's most appealing to a lot of people is that because of the way it's structured, it's a lot more manageable for people that have quite busy careers. I've also, you know, got the benefit of having done the postgraduate diploma and the MBA, so I know the workload involved in those. So they're a lot more full on for a very long period of time. And so this is a much more practical program for those of you who are in a full-time job. So I think, you know, having been with the program for a number of years, I've seen the benefit of it every year. It kind of iterates to the point where it is now. And I think the evolution has been really, really positive. You know, the thing I particularly like about the program is that it is structured with a combination of theory and practical application, but you're hearing from people in industry, and that's probably a really key factor for a lot of the people that will join this course, because you'll get a very, very strong network from it. So it's seldom now that I have to look too far when I actually have an issue that I don't have the resources internally to solve. Most commonly a quick reach out to either the alumni group or someone like Dave or who will help you get into the program, be able to put you in touch with somebody pretty quickly. And that network is so critical to you when you're moving into the senior level roles, because what you will find, or are probably already finding if you're in that kind of position, is gets pretty thin at the top in terms of people with that level of capability and knowledge. And so peer-to-peer networking becomes your real friend. All good understanding the theory and the application, but when you actually move into the real life application, having someone that's done it before or some transferable skills is really, really valuable. Being a advisory group member, so what for those of you that don't know what that means, is the university actually employs or has a group of people that come together. They're all volunteers that are passionate about developing this program, because our motivation is around building the next generation of talent to support our own organisations and the wider New Zealand Inc. So we're all really motivated by that. And so what we tend to bring to the university, I guess, is, hey, where are the focus points? Where are the market needs? And this is where I think the university's done a wonderful job of continuing to iterate the program to meet the market demand. And so that group, you've got people from all over the sectors. You've got, healthcare, you've got ports, you've got, and I'm just talking largely about the supply chain one, but I gather there's the same thing for the other programs. What it does is it helps make sure that the content you're learning is going to be helpful to you when you get back to work. And that's why most of us go on these programs, to learn. And I think, for me, the take-homes are of probably the strongest thing in addition to the theoretical elements of the program, and the workload is actually the network that you have afterwards. And I've worked with a lot of people, the projects, the sponsors. You get some good stuff as you go through, but really it is the people you meet along the way, and that you can't even really put a price on how valuable that is to you, especially when you're in a senior role, as most of you will be, and growing your careers. So, Dave, is there anything else you want me to sort of cover off or talk to?
No, I think that was great. And but if you can hang around, we'll I know you're doing tours today, but if you have a hang around, I'll do have the other alumni introduce us, then we'll get into the panel and we can go back to you.
Cool.
Great. Okay. So I'd like to ask now Azura Ali, if you could jump on and say a few words. Good to see you again. I don't think I've seen you since the final reception, and that was I think that was before COVID, actually, right?
It was, yeah.
Yes, it was one of the last events we had in person. So good to see you. And you've changed. You look the same, but you've changed a lot. You've moved to a new place and new company and new roles. So good to have you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Dave. And it's a real pleasure to be online today. And I guess Dave's given me a couple of speaking points today to cover off in terms of my own experience going through the program. Obviously, so when I started in the program, I was in a business manager role, so not the CFO role. And the reason I actually jumped onto this program was it had a lot to offer in terms of not just the practical, but also just the connections and all of the networking and everything else. And when I looked at the program for myself as I was analyzing it, one of the biggest things that really motivated me was to see how can I actually put the theoretical stuff into practice, and also just network to see if actually do I want to be on the C-suite myself. And when I started, I really enjoyed the fact that there was a lot of connections, a lot of people you can reach out to. And it actually solidified my decision to keep going down that path. And then by the end of the program, I had accepted a CFO role, which really was, it was a credit to the program. It gave me all the toolkits and the confidence to carry on. And since then, I think I've gone back to all of the documents, the notes, the networks that John T also spoke about so many times. And I can't, keep thinking about the fact that I don't have to think too far. And there's always a message away, and I can contact some of the alumni that we spoke to. And in terms of the actual program, while the networks and the mindset of the people and the guest speakers were just a minute away anytime, I also found that the toolkit that you walk away with is just amazing. You get so many different avenues to access it. So obviously you've got the online stuff, but you've also got the written notes that you've got printed out. On top of that, I was taking lots and lots of notes away as the speakers were speaking. And sometimes, when you don't know where to go, you just come back home and look through it, and immediately something triggers, and then you know who to contact. So again, going back to those toolkits, I found that really useful. Since then, within our own cohort, I've reached out to at least 6 of our cohort members in that 1 year that I've transitioned over. And it's been really great, that sharing of knowledge, access to things that you don't really need to reinvent it yourself. You have those connections that will tie you into those toolkits. As part of the program, one of the really cool things is you actually do a practical project, which I'm sure you'll be spoken to in a bit more detail. But my particular one in the industry was around the facilities management. And because we were competing with different tenders and things, it was a real opportunity at the time to actually branch out of my own finance section and look into the other areas of, the bid strategies and things like that. So in the end, the solution I landed on was a robotic, automated robots, artificial intelligence vacuum cleaner, actually, which is very far from finance. But the thinking process actually and the strategy that went into it, it all came about basically from, one of the lecturers that came on, Paddy, and when he jumped on and he talked about the thinking behind strategic decision making. And he talked through a lot of concepts, which I still remember. I reached out to him, and the tools that he provided, it was really helpful. And I could just jump back on and ask him for more questions and answers. That led me to speaking to multiple professors as well. And I think, you can reach out and just remember to network, because you don't know where it takes you. So I think that that's definitely a key takeaway. So, you could end up anywhere. And the biggest thing I would say is that it's just been so amazing to have the mentor as well, because as well as the professors, the connections within the teachers and your own cohort, your mentor, lean on them if you do decide to go ahead, because it was just a great bouncing of ideas for myself. And I think I can go on and on, but I know that time is of the essence, so I'll stop there. But that's me and how I jumped on in my journey. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that was great. And no, I talk about your project because for me, there was a lot of different finance things going on. But what I thought was great is that you brought a real story to it. When you talk working for the facilities company that you work for, and then replacing, using automated robots, but how the finance, justifying it through financial, it wasn't, just, using the finance to justify why you're doing it. And I think that, what I've heard a lot of the board members, the guest speakers, or our advisory group that are reporting up to the board talk about, as you move up in the organization, you got to get above the jargon of finance and present a story to the board and to senior management, because they don't know you're trying to justify projects, whether it's finance or IT or supply chain, and they don't know that, it's going to fly over their head. So you need to make it come alive. And I think that's really what you did in your presentation. I think that's a lot of what we're trying to teach people and help people to understand as they go through this program. So thank you so much. But yeah, please hang on, and we will come back to you with some questions as we move through. So now I'd like to introduce Bruce to give Airways New Zealand to give his introduction and talk about his experience just finishing this year.
Sure, that's great. Hope you can all hear me. Hi,
yes,
everybody.
Very good.
So yeah, look, Dave's also given me a few talking points to just run through a few things of some of the lessons I've picked up over the time that I spent on the program last year, which then stretched into this year a little bit because of COVID and all that type of stuff. But we got through that. So the first bit I want to really talk about is why I chose the program. And Jonty is alluded to it already. Is look, it's I think it's the practical nature and the practice and thought leadership's the key thing for me that came out of it, because I was thinking about, I wanted to do some study, I wanted to do something, I wanted to learn more, but I wasn't sure if MBA was right. I didn't have the time for that because that was full on. I didn't want to do fully academic of going to do my master's or something like that. So what's in that middle, but I also wanted something that helps me bridge into an executive role. So therefore, this actually worked really nicely, where we got a lot of stuff around thought leadership, a lot of stuff around networking, which was really great, why I chose it. and also about some practical approaches of how to deal with stuff. Like, you can have the theory, but then how do you put that into practice? How do you get your business cases over the line with your CEO and also with your board? And I'll talk a little bit later about who we had come talk to us about that. So that was some of the reasons why I chose this program, which I got a lot out of. In terms of the cohort, so I was part of the people program, and therefore we had about 10 of us from all parts of the country. We had people from Invercargill, New Plymouth, different range of companies, Hamilton, Christchurch, and Auckland. So we got together on a pretty regular basis, both online and face-to-face. And what was really great was just you form a group, a kinship with that group, because you're all going through it together. You're all learning, and you've got dumb questions to ask. But you also help each other out with their own business problems that are going on. You know, you can talk within that group within a Chatham House rules sort of environment that we created, saying, well, I've got this problem, this issue, how do I deal with that? And that's where that reliance on that and that exposure to the network has been awesome. It's been fantastic to do that, and I still rely on that and people I talk to on a pretty regular basis to bounce ideas off. And what was really good was then branching off into the other cohorts, because it was not just about the people program, but all the programs from finance, supply chain, IT, and bouncing their ideas and thoughts. Because in our people program, we actually had one person who was from an IT background doing the people program. And, you know, if you get a bunch of HR people talking, or people in one room, they talk a certain way and think a different way, he would come at a totally different angle that made us think about, well, actually, you're right, we need to think about this a little bit, the problem multidimensionally. And that's having that cross-section in a cohort was awesome. Some of the guest speakers, well, look, all the speakers that come on, I have to say they were fantastic, all of them. You know, we had economists speaking. We had Paul Conway from the chief economist at the BNZ, which was great to give that business context. A big shout out to Professor Bridget Carroll at the University of Auckland. She did an awesome job with us around purpose-led organizations and some stuff about leadership down, across, and through, and organizational change principles and case studies. And then we had we actually had Kate Daly, who's the MD of People at Fonterra. And what was really good from her sort of talk to us was really around, okay, you're in the role. What do you need to do to get the CEO over the line on your business case? What do you need to do to present to the board? What are they looking for? What are they not looking for? What are some of those clues that you need to pick up on? And that's where that practical element comes through, that can say, and lessons that they learned and mistakes they'd made, and say, look, if I had my time again on that particular piece of work or promotion of an idea, I would approach it this way. And that's where that practical element, coupled with the research, along with the thought leadership, that's why I've really enjoyed the program. Had a great time. That's it, Dave.
Great, thanks, Bruce. So maybe now I could ask if the panelists, if Jonty and Zora, and Rod as well, if you could turn on your cameras, and I believe our tech can show everybody, and we can have a little bit of a panel discussion. So if you do have questions, I see there's one in there we'll address, but please enter them through the Q&A, and we'll get to them now. I did want to ask Rod. You taught in the program last year, and one of the things that as I talked about, it's really a bringing together of academics and practical, so the theory and the practice, and that's really the value. And I know, Rod, you worked with one of the senior executive in an organization, so maybe you could talk about that and how that worked, and maybe some of the other guest speakers, or even the importance of the diversity in driving innovation and hearing from different angles of thought. I think that was kind of one of the things you were talking about in your talk during the program.
Well, last year was the first year that I contributed to the program, and the timing turned out to be really interesting, because it was just as Auckland went into its major lockdown in August. So we certainly had to pivot as to what we did. But when you asked me to contribute to the program, I think as a professor of entrepreneurship, you were thinking I was probably going to go in and give some tools around, the business model canvas and lean businesses and those kinds of things. And I stepped back and thought about, just hold on. If these people are interested in moving into the C-suite, that's not actually the kind of problem that they have. The problem that they have is dealing upwards with the board, and the owners and that the board represents, and what they want to get out of the company, and then working downwards mapping that on to the company's structure and its policies and its incentives to cause innovation to happen. So I ended up talking with the group about innovation governance, which is a topic I'm pretty sure that you won't find anywhere else. Even the Institute of Directors doesn't have anything on that topic at the moment. And we brought in Scott Bishop, who I really think is New Zealand's innovation guru. Scott worked at Z Energy at the time and created the Innovation Foundry that Z Energy has, which is a separate unit of Z Energy that has a mandate to develop both its service innovations, but also its longer term about what an energy company does when fossil fuels are no longer on stream. And since then, Scott has moved on to IAG and has created something called the Firemark Collective. So I really appreciate the opportunity to teach in the program, the questions that we got from the students that challenged us back, and my opportunity to both present some new ideas, I think, around innovation governance, but to have Scott talk about how he actually encountered those same problems and overcame them at Z Energy, I think proved to be quite a powerful conversation.
Great. Thanks, Rod. So John T., I have a question for you. So you've really progressed over the years, and as an advisory group member, I remember, so I attend the meetings, and I'm really amazed. I mean, the level, I've worked at a lot of universities and MBA programs, and the level of people and experience and the dedication of people, not just on the advisory group, but, on the paper, but really being involved in the program. And I wonder why. And I go to some of the advisory group meetings that we have 2 or 3 a year, and hear the discussion that takes place. So I guess my question is, and I do remember at the beginning, we had a meeting, advisory group meeting after COVID had started, and you were talking about supply chain and throwing things out, and you were having challenges, and everybody was having challenges. And it really became more just what I think probably takes place in the C-suite classroom, right? A very similar kind of discussion. But I guess maybe you could talk about your role on the advisory group and the contacts you've made and why, and really talked a little bit about it, but maybe a little more about why you do it and what you've gotten out of it over the years.
Sure. Look, I sort of alluded a little bit to it before, Dave. So there's the piece around, like, I really enjoy the learning and helping and that kind of piece. There's also probably a little bit of a selfish piece behind it, trying to create a pipeline of talent to be able to support industry in New Zealand, and making sure that we've got programs there that can grow our people. So New Zealand's actually a really small part of the world when you actually get into the roles that most of you will be either in or heading to. And so, you start to know a lot of people, and, through the advisory group, maybe answering some of the points you made before, I've met an amazing group of people, and I draw on them for all sorts of things. So I'll talk to them, and it's maybe a little bit about what Bruce was talking about. I'll talk to them about, I look after supply chain, facilities and sustainability, but I'll talk to them about HR challenges. I'll talk to them about, opportunities and sustainability. What are you guys doing here? And it's a lot to do. Maybe it's not always that they're the person to help me, but most of the time they'll be like, oh, look, I don't know, but I know this person that does know someone that's good at this. And so you have this fantastic connection with the alumni. I personally, having been through a lot of programs in the past, I've had the benefit of having some mentors myself, and that really shaped and grew my career. And a little bit of this is, for me, passing that on. And I've got, a couple of people that I mentor ongoing that have, one's come out of the program and I'm still working with really closely. Got a couple of others that have just sort of reached out, and they asked me that. They're like, what do you get out of this mentor advisory kind of thing? And it's kind of that paying it forward bit. This is the next generation of New Zealand's great talent. And, we live in one of the best places in the world, but it's when you talk in the supply chain context, it's about as far away from everything as we could get. And so that presents us with a whole lot of opportunity to think very differently. So I often, talk to my team about not using the words best practices, because best practices were innovative 10 years ago. And so what we try to do is, encourage people to think differently, find programs like this where they're going to be surrounded by different people. And the piece Bruce was talking about, where you get put with people from other sectors, that's actually how the real world works. And that's what I like about this program, is that when you're at the board level, which is what Rod was talking about, you're not trying to convince somebody that knows something about what you know. You're trying to convince someone from HR or finance or innovation or operations, and being able to navigate that is critical. And so, those are the things that I've gotten out of it, both as an individual, as a mentor, as a sponsor, and advisory group member.
Great. Oops. Great. Thank you very much. Yeah. Zora, I'm wondering from your perspective, moving into the CFO role, and as Jonty was just talking about, how you, so you were in class with people from different backgrounds, and maybe some of the relationships you made. You're a finance person, but you were working with the IT and the people, and maybe how that's helped you now that you're in the CFO role, reporting to the CEO, presenting to the board, and these kind of things.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think definitely being part of the cohort has really helped me. One of the great things in the program, which I found, was you weren't just talking to your CFO cohort, because you had the IT people as well as the supply chain, the people. So everybody in the rooms together, and that really established those connections, which I mentioned previously that I've been able to reach out to. And of course, in my current role, it is all about the people, regardless of what you do. At the end of the day, as a leader, that's what comes down to. So I think that mindset and all of the practicalities that we went through. So I think I always think back at the coaching practice that we did all throughout the process. And even that particular aspect, it is, day in and day out, I try to rethink about that, because, as part of that group, we had 3 different people from 3 different cohorts. So in mine, I had someone from supply chain as well as somebody from the IT, and then I was the finance person. So then all of, going back to all of those practices that we did, it is very practical and very realistic. And to me, those practical skills around the people that you put to practice is what happens day in and day out. So at the end of the day, you might be your expert in your field, but then it's about those relationships and being able to just reach out. And yeah, I think that's definitely been one of the biggest values that I find that I'm always going back to. At that toolkit with all of those, contacts and summary of condensed information, because you don't always have the chance to research too much and you're thinking on the fly. So then being able to just open something and tap back into it has been, hugely, it's all the mindset at the end of the day. And that's what this program really trains you to do.
Great. Thank you very much. So I'm going to ask, so I have a question for Rod and then a follow-up for Bruce. So Rod, I know you talked about a lot of innovation comes from diversity of thinking, right? So and learning from other companies that might not be in your a different industry or from people doing different things. And maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because that's what the kind of discussion. And I know from my background in MBA programs, people are coming together and forming businesses with people that they wouldn't have met if it wasn't for the program. But also, I think that discussion, you could be working like Bruce in the airline industry, but you hear from Fonterra or the food industry, and there's cross-learning. So maybe you could talk a bit about that. And then Bruce, if you have thought of anything as you went through hearing from other people in different industries that sparked your thinking about how you might be able to do things differently, or things you might be able to incorporate.
you just had me thinking there. I don't know if it would be really great if we had some people actually leave the program and found a business together. I'm not sure we've had that one.
I think we have. We'll come back to that.
Yeah, that could make a really wonderful story to share later. But yeah, I think you're right. But it goes a little bit deeper than this. We actually take quite a bit of care in crafting the cohort. So we would try to make sure that close competitors, for example, aren't in the same cohort together. But having said that, there are lessons, as you pointed out, to be gained from the people in all of the other sectors that are there. So I think I don't actually have as much to say. You've caught me off guard on that question a little bit. I don't have quite as much to say.
That was in the notes, I think.
Oh, sorry about that. And I'm sure Bruce is going to give some really practical examples of where it has occurred for him. But I think that's actually part of the cohort experience, right? That we try to manage who is in the cohort so that there is enough diversity there that you can actually freely share. And someone actually used the phrase Chatham House rules earlier, that you can actually come into this group with real problems that you're actually experiencing and get advice on it. And by the same token, as Jonty was saying, yeah, best practice is what happened 10 years ago. Some industries will be further ahead than others in what they're doing, and actually hearing about what they're doing and borrowing and figuring out how to adapt it to your organization is pretty powerful as well. But Bruce, I'm sure you've got a great example where it's actually happened for you.
Well, I haven't prepared Bruce for this, so if there is another question for you, but if you have any examples on that, that would be great.
Look, I think probably in our cohort, it was more around some of we had one group in our people cohort, it was just from the IT background, and just his way of, he's a Scrum Master, he was involved with that, and just his way of thinking of problems and how to solve problems was very different of how to solve some of the people related problems. And that was fascinating because we were all as a cohort heading down a particular path. Someone comes in with a different perspective and it blows you, I actually never thought of that way, of how to solve a particular people related issue. So I think, and then when that's just in our people cohort, then you expand that again to all of the finance, and you've got supply chain and so forth, the rest of them. And it really does open your mind about how, when you solve those problems, are problems at an enterprise level, and that everyone has a view and everyone has an opportunity to contribute to solving the problem for you and helping. And that's what I found really useful when we did those discussions. I see Felicity sent me a question as well.
Yeah. So that question is, people go, this is a leadership journey program. So it goes over 5 months or so. And people definitely, look, people are older and they're kind of set, but certainly it opens up new ways of thinking. We see that with our other programs, the Leadership Mindset program, which is really focused on that. But did you see, as a people person and an HR leader, did you notice any changes in the cohort and the culture as you went through?
Yeah, sure. I think I saw some people that at the start of the program were quite tentative, nervous, not confident in their own abilities. That if you're in the program, you're at a pretty senior level anyway. But what we saw was people grow in confidence, that they expand their thinking of how to solve problems and looking at it from more different angles, but then having the confidence in themselves to actually, I can do this. I can present to the board, I can present to the exec team, and do that confidently and do that in a really clear way. And that was really pleasing to see when I had my HR hat on, looking at some of those people really growing in confidence to say, yep, I can do this. I absolutely can, and I want it. And that was great to see.
Yeah, great. I do see we have one of the modules deals with advanced communications and presenting to the board. And Rob McNeil, who teaches that, really gives you a great toolkit for how to put together a very succinct presentation. And then also you do the videoing and all those kind of things. But just that, that kind of, getting those tools. And again, a lot of it is about, you don't know what you don't know when you go through a program like this, right? You're just kind of cruising along and you have your blind spots, and you come into a program like this and it allows you to see things in a safe atmosphere, right? You don't want to, it's fine to fail in the program if you're presenting to the board, but you don't want to do it when you're actually presenting to the board. You want to have training before you do that. We have one other question so somebody asked, is there an intent to address the chief clinical officer role. So that's a very specific, would be a specific group. I think what we are looking to do is we have, these, just to give you a little quick history, these programs at one point were separate programs. So we had the CIOs, the CFOs, the supply chain, and they didn't come together. As the programs have evolved now, we see really the value of having everybody together, as we've been talking about, and the discussion that takes place. And we are looking to have more options and flexibility as you go through. So for instance, we did have somebody who was in the program last year, and he was interested in more of a fintech. So he did some of the electives and some of the sessions from the finance stream and some of the sessions from the IT, the CAO stream, and bounce back and forth. So there is an option to start to look at this. And I think that's the development as we're continuing to develop the program. I see another question here. I have been contemplating doing an MBA versus C-suite. Hearing everyone today, there seems to be a theme of being able to apply the theory into real life situations. What do we get? Do we learn? Where do we go to learn the theory? Is that part of the C-suite program? Yeah, I can answer that quickly and throw it out to anybody. I think, and maybe to Rod, yes, certainly there's a theoretical aspect to this, and it's supported by academics like Rod, and on each of those big themes, like Bridget Carroll, Tava Olson, we have our top academics, and really the top teaching academics in the school that are teaching in these programs. But we don't want to make it all, it can't only be theoretical. And even in an MBA or an executive MBA, you don't want it to be only theoretical. People are coming, an MBA is a practical degree, and you want to be able to take the things that you're learning in the classroom and apply them back to your job. So that's what we try to do. But Rod, I'll throw it to you, maybe talk a little bit about the difference between maybe a degree and doing a program like this.
Well, I'll answer the specific question and then more general the specific question. I think what the C-suite program does is help you to understand how to translate theory into action. And the emphasis is more on that translation component than it would be in most degree programs. So most degree programs are not set in the context of your current job. Whereas the C-suite, the context in which we ask you to bring to the classroom and to share with others is the current position that you are working in, the problems you're experiencing, and then extrapolating, where am I going to go next? Whereas an MBA program, you're coming into the classroom and largely you're not setting what you're doing in the context of your current employment. So I think that we are helping you to translate the theory into the practice as part of the program and not leaving it to you to figure out yourself while you're on the job is one of the primary differences. Stepping up to the different level, I mean, there are lots of differences, of course. I mean, the real practical one is you don't have assessments to do, which is absolutely fantastic. But there's clearly a difference in committing to a full MBA program over a 2 to 3 year period versus being able to complete this program within a 1 year period, for example. And I think the purposes that people pursue these programs would be quite different, equally valuable. But just very, very different products. And if you have a question about that, yeah, I think Jonty mentioned that he'd been through both, so he can probably comment well on that. But have a chat with us, about what's best for you, because we have a whole portfolio of offerings. And if this isn't it, it might well be a different program that we have that's a good fit for you.
Right. Yeah, thanks. And Jonty, certainly you've a glutton for punishment, have done the MBA, the postgrad, the C-suite. Continuing, maybe you're the best person to talk about the differences.
Sure. Yeah, I was going to say, having done all, I can probably give some insight to it. I think, look, Rod's right on the money in the fact that the MBA program is a lot more intense. It's a lot longer, and it's a big commitment. It's a really serious long-term commitment, and there's a lot of assessment, there's a lot of reading, so juggling that with a very busy job is challenging.
And you did that before you had a family, before you had kids, at least.
I did,
yes,
which was
so
good. So that made it a lot easier. But look, I think there are different learning applications, and as Rod said, it depends what you're looking for in the stage of your career. all are valuable. It just depends on what you're trying to achieve. So I think, you know, the MBA program, I think, arms you with a lot of skills across a very broad portfolio of theoretical topics, has some very good pieces of work around team and international business and that kind of thing. I think you've got to, you know, weigh up proportionally how much time you spend in an MBA versus a C-suite program, and so the C-suite is much more practical, relevant to the job you're in right now, as Rod said. And I think, you know, what I would encourage that person to do is to speak to the university, and they will guide you on the best option for you in the stage of your career. So for me, when I did my programs, you know, when I did the postgraduate and the MBA, I was more early in my my progression towards a C-suite membership, and then as I got further along that path, it became around how do I transfer those skills. And maybe just touching briefly on the chief clinical officer role, I think you know, yes, there isn't a chief clinical specific role, but a lot of what these courses talk about are the transferable skills required to influence in those circles. And kind of what I was saying before is you're not often trying to just specifically deal with something about your area. So mine would be supply chain or infrastructure. Quite often the things I'm talking about are much broader than that. So yeah, I just thought I'd add that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And we do have, so basically that we have those three areas, but we have the general manager. So it's general manager people. And we're really looking, that's really a role, the general manager specialization is for anybody who's moving into the managing director role of a division or running large projects, but that you don't have to be in one of these, the CEO. So one of the specific areas specializations, you can do the general manager and still get a tremendous amount out of the program. So thank you very much. I think our time is about up here. So I'd like to thank our alumni, Bruce, Janti, Azura for joining us. Thank you, Rod, for joining. Really, the most valuable part of these programs is bringing your knowledge and understanding and having gone through it. And I want to thank people that are joining. When we do it with this webinar, it's hard because we can't see anybody, but I know you're there. We're certainly happy. I'll send you a follow-up email. We'll send you a recording of this session if you want to watch it again or have any questions. Feel free. I'm happy to have a conversation with you. My colleague Noah, we're happy to talk to you about the program, as they said, and see what's a better fit for you. As Rod mentioned, we have short courses. We have custom programs we can do for companies, as well as our leadership journey programs. So with that, I will end the session. Thank you very much. And we look forward to hearing from you in the future and hope you can join us this September for the start of transitioning to the C-suite.